Welcome back. Thank you very much for staying with us. Now, according to Sunday Times, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma is vying for the ANC Presidency. She'll take the President Cyril Ramaphosa on again at the elective conference in December. You'll remember Ramaphosa narrowly defeated her at the 54th conference back in 2017. He garnered 51.90% of the vote. Now, political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu joins us to unpack this very development. Mr. Mngomezulu, good morning and thank you very much for your time. I mean, the papers yesterday have revealed some very significant developments that could seriously shift the pendulum in others' favor. We understand that NDZ has indicated to a specific branch that she is available to contest. But looking at the current political landscape, would her campaign honestly enjoy widespread support like it did back in 2017?
No, thank you very much, Mfundo, and good morning to your viewers. Maybe let's start off by saying that in 2017, Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma had a very strong campaign. And as you have just indicated in your entry statement, that in fact, she narrowly lost to the current president, Cyril Ramaphosa, by a mere 179 votes, which was something unprecedented in the history of the ANC. But then, of course, we are also absolutely right in saying that the political context then and the political context now are totally different. Firstly, the ANC had not announced until the meeting that was supposed to have happened over the weekend that branches can now start the nomination process. But there's been something untoward that has been happening, whereby some leaders of the ANC, most of whom are members of the NEC, started pronouncing that they would like the current president to come back for the second term. So once the ANC then officially announces that branches and provinces can announce their candidates, then the name of Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma emerges there. Then, of course, the fight will start. But the prospects of her either doing well or not doing well will be informed by the number of candidates that will be contesting against Cyril Ramaphosa in the event that he's nominated. Because at the moment, we don't have anything formal saying that he has been formally nominated because the ANC has not activated that process.
But if we look at the argument by some that KZN cannot have two candidates, but we had the same thing happening in 2017 where we had Zweli Mkhize coming in as the unity candidate or third way, and we also had Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma emerging from KZN. So do you think that at this point it would be very confusing or difficult for KZN, or it would split the vote?
It depends on what the end goal is, because if, for example, the province decides that they want to field 2 or 3 candidates, there is nothing preventing them from doing that. But they'll have to do a clear calculation as to which approach would assist them best. If, for example, they field only 1 candidate, in all probability, it would mean that they would all be putting their weight behind that candidate. But having said that, KZN is not a separate province from all the other 8. So which means that even if you nominate one candidate from KZN, it doesn't necessarily mean that such a candidate will only enjoy support from KZN, because the ANC is a national organization and you need the support of other provinces for you to emerge victorious. But of course, KZN will have to be strategic on this matter to avoid a similar situation that happened in 2017, whereby they fielded candidates, but they didn't put their weight behind those candidates. So in the event that you also have other candidates from other provinces, then of course it makes a winning difficult, like we saw with Senzo Mtono, we saw with Zweli Mkhize and a couple others. So the reality of the matter is 2017 should be a reference point, and then whatever decision they arrive at must be informed by the developments that took place in 2017.
Now, if we look at other differences of now versus 2017, President Jacob Zuma was leaving, so there was going to be a new president in that respect, but now we have an incumbent. So in this instance, would that work in perhaps Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma's favor, or it would be a disadvantage? Because sometimes people say there is that incumbency curse where there is something to measure you against and you cannot please everybody. So would it place perhaps the current president in a somewhat weaker position, because what he promised versus what perhaps South Africans have got is something that can be debated by some, but Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma has not had some sort of a record to be measured against?
No, that is a very valid point. In fact, interestingly, yesterday and early this morning, I was making a similar point to some of your colleagues in the media space, saying that one of the things that maybe might have resulted in Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma not winning in 2017 is because there are people who had issues with the former president, and then with the former president then endorsing Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, some said that if you have a Zuma exiting the stage and you have another Zuma coming in, that is not going to augur well. But now we've gone past that stage. So it means that if Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma were to be nominated, and then she accepts the nomination, and then she enters the race, she will be going there as an individual, not necessarily as someone who is basically continuing from where former President Jacob Zuma left off. Because even the accusation at that time was not fair, given the fact that they were already separated. So there was nothing linking Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma to former President Zuma, but it happened. Then on the side of the president, the incumbency, as you correctly pointed out, is always a problem. It works in two ways. On the one hand, if you have done well as an incumbent person, then of course that bolsters your chances to do better. But in the event that you are seen not to have done well, then of course it works against you. We've heard recently the likes of Tony Yengeni asking a very simple question. Has this administration delivered on the resolutions that were taken in 2017? And then he came to the conclusion that the answer is in the negative. So if that is the case, then it means that, of course, that weakens the president. Then, of course, we look at a number of areas where the country is not doing well, which is not of the president's making, by the way, but it happens to be at the time when these things are happening. Unemployment rate is high, petrol prices are going up, salaries are not going up to meet the inflation rate, and a number of other things.
Something that many have argued, Professor, many have argued that he's dealing with a consequence of poor management and corruption from the Zuma era. That has been an argument of some that don't completely blame him for the economy currently, because these, to a certain extent, are the consequences of poor management.
No, people will always say that, because even when former President Zuma was facing some challenges, others said he was not the one to blame. They blamed his predecessor, that is former President Thabo Mbeki. And in fact, the issue of ESCOM, people will tell you that it started way back in 2000, and then they will be making arguments along those lines. So there is nothing wrong with that. People are allowed, in fact, to make those inferences, which doesn't necessarily remove the reality that we are faced with, and the reality that we have an incumbent president where these things are happening. So people will always take these different sides, and they are allowed to do that.
All right. Professor, thank you very much for your time this morning. That's political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu. Now, still to come on Newslink, I'll be talking to a legal expert on the Western Cape High Court ruling that declared